If you're currently shopping through a sea of same SUVs, you might be looking for something a little bit different, something more. We've taken two examples of that and pulled them out here for comparison.
Here we've got the 2022 Subaru Outback Wilderness, and behind me we've got the Honda Passport Touring. Let's go for a drive.
Right off the top, it's important for us to know that there's a pretty big price difference between these two vehicles. The Honda Passport is in the Touring trim, which is the top of the line for this vehicle, priced at $52,971, which includes a $1,870 destination charge. The Outback Wilderness is a mid-level trim for this vehicle, which is priced at $44,249, which includes a $1,875 destination charge. Both of these crossovers end up with a similar power range, but they achieve them in very different ways. The Passport runs off a 3.5-liter iVTEC V6 with a 9-speed automatic transmission with grade logic control. It produces 280 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque, which peaks at 4,700 RPM. The 9-speed automatic helps a great deal in getting this naturally aspirated engine moving more quickly, and this more traditional SUV powertrain contributes to the Passport's available 5,000-pound towing capacity. The Outback Wilderness runs on Subaru's 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, which is laid out in a boxer configuration, which gives the vehicle a lower center of gravity. The transmission is a CVT to help with fuel efficiency, and Subaru says that it's configured this transmission to be more responsive at lower speeds. The Natural Resources Canada fuel consumption figures for the Outback Wilderness are 10.9 liters per 100 kilometers in city driving and 8.9 on the highway. I often find that my fuel use figures in Subarus end up higher than the estimates, and that is the case here. This vehicle is showing an 11.6 liter per 100 kilometer usage over 500 kilometers. The Passport Touring is rated at 12.5 liters per 100 kilometers in city driving and 9.8 on the highway. Our current figure of 11.9 liters per 100 kilometers is more in line with this estimate. So I don't know about you, Renita, but I find that actually the driving character of both of these vehicles is a little bit better than I expected.
Oh yeah, Sam, I totally agree. They both drive really smoothly and they have like similar driving features even though they're completely different cars.
What about the design? Which one do you find the more interesting and the more appealing of the two?
Hands down, the Outback looks very much more appealing of the two. The Subaru's got all these gold accents all over, like on the outside and on the interior. It's matching everywhere.
Not only that, but those gold markers on the outside, they call it anodized copper in their marketing material. That actually indicates some capability. The roof rails on this vehicle that I'm driving, the Outback, are capable of a 220-pound dynamic load. That means what you can carry on the roof while you're driving, and a 700-pound static load, which means that you can put something on the roof like a rooftop tent or something along those lines, which is really cool capability for a vehicle in this price point for going and doing some actual adventuring. Subaru is already one of the top in the industry for having a lot of ground clearance, and this one takes that even a step further. The ground clearance on the Passport is 20.5 centimeters, which is still plenty for how most people who are going to consider that vehicle will use it, and it can carry a 165-pound dynamic load on those raised roof rails there, so it's no slouch either, but the Outback definitely takes it a step further. What do you think of the interior design?
So the interiors on both of them they're okay. The interior on the Outback as well is a little better than the Honda's. The Honda's is very plain, but it's also familiar. The Subaru has clearly, again, they've got the gold accents going on in the inside as well, so it matches the outside, which is nice. It takes some thought process.
For sure, and I really like that the Wilderness has these weatherproof mats and everything are included in the price. It's not extra equipment, including in the cargo area, which is, you know, pretty sizable for the size of this vehicle class, but not quite as good as the Passport. I think you've got the figures, Renita.
So on the outside, you can definitely tell that the Passport is a little bit bigger. The cargo for the Passport, it's got about 1,430 liters, whereas the cargo for the Outback only has 920 liters. I'm sure some of that has to do with the height and the overall size of the Passport.
Absolutely. The Outback figures are lower, and that's understandable because it's not a full height crossover. It's shorter and slightly narrower by design. It's kind of intended to be part wagon, part crossover, and that's frankly refreshing in a market where there aren't a lot of wagons left. But the fact that the roof rails can handle all that extra weight helps make up for that that lack of interior cargo capacity for those who really need it.
I do like the Subaru's wagon look. I think it makes it stand out in a sea of SUVs because you know it's not a complete station wagon. You can definitely tell it apart from other cars.
We mentioned at the beginning that there's a big price difference between these vehicles, and that's mainly because when we're looking at the Passport, it's the touring trim, which is the top of the line. The Outback is intended to be more of a mid-grade trim, but a lot of the feature content is surprisingly similar. We've got a wireless phone charger in both. We've got a small sunroof in both. Heated front seats, heated rear outboard seats, and the big difference I think is mainly the ventilated front seats in the Passport, which, you know, some people can take or leave. I don't actually enjoy ventilated seats at all, so it doesn't bother me to not have them, but a lot of people would find that was a big omission.
Yeah, I'm sure in the summer it's nice, but yeah, I agree with you. I'm not a huge fan of ventilated seats. I think it feels a bit awkward to have your bottom feeling that cold.
What about the infotainment systems? There's two very different ones at play here.
Yeah, they're extremely different. Aside from the difference in size, the difference in layout, I mean, the Subaru has the portrait-styled infotainment screen, and this one has a landscape version. The Subaru's is a lot bigger, but I prefer the Passports. I think it's easier to use. It's got a bit more functions that are simpler to get to. I also don't like when you are reversing, the camera on the Subaru it's not the greatest camera, which I can live with, but I also don't like that it just has a top piece that shows you the camera. I understand why, it's not a portrait styled camera, but it's just got a blank space on the screen at the bottom. They probably could have used it to add in, I don't know, some car stats or driving stats while you're in reverse.
The Honda Infotainment System that's currently in use is a lot more user-friendly than the ones of the past. I do find that. There's a volume knob, which makes a big difference. There's not a tuning knob. To change between stations, you have to hit a digital button. It happens to be nice and close to the driver, which I see as an advantage. I wish that there were more presets available on each screen. There's only 4, and I tend to like to set a lot, so that would start to bother me after a while. But the Subaru system I also don't find very user-friendly. It took me quite a while to find a lot of the functions. It might be something that you'd get used to over time. Yes, it's nice to have a lot in front of you on the screen, but I also would prefer to have buttons for a lot of things, particularly where HVAC functions are concerned. There is a button for heat, a button for the front and rear defrost, but if you're looking at things like changing the temperature quickly in increments or activating the heated seats, that's all on the digital screen, which is not my preferred method of dealing with things.
Yeah, I agree. The buttons, especially for the climate control, it was a little confusing at first to have to continuously press something on the screen and then it pops up, and even then it's still a little bit confusing. In
terms of safety technologies for the two vehicles, they're very similar. They both have their brand suite of driver assistance systems. The Honda's is called Honda Sensing, and Subaru it's called EyeSight. The Subaru system has a lane centering feature that's an advantage over the Honda system. I don't happen to like it. I find that it ping-pongs a little bit in the lane. It's not my favorite. That might just be my driving style, I'm not sure. It is also worth mentioning that both of these vehicles obviously come with all-wheel drive, but the systems are a little bit different. Both of them are full-time. The Subaru's is full-time symmetrical all-wheel drive, so it's the same torque running in each wheel, front and rear axle, but the Passport actually has Honda's torque vectoring all-wheel drive system, which means on the rear axle you can have up to 100% of the available torque going to either the left or right wheel on demand, so it's a little bit more of a capable system. The other thing Subaru does with this that the Passport doesn't do is take those off-roading features a little bit to the next level. The Passport does have driving modes for off-road conditions. The Subaru has its X mode, which achieves similar functionality, and also is the dual mode system here, which has different levels of off-road adjustment for the vehicle, but I think that the key feature that the Outback has that the Passport doesn't is a hill descent control function. Not that it's something that people necessarily use very often unless they're going down a cottage road that has a big grade, but in those situations it does help a great deal to have that speed control and ability to just be a little bit more mindful as you're going over those grades, and the Passport skips on that feature.
But I think it's great that the Outback has that because, like you said, it is something that's more adventurous. So I think it would be, like, it's a great feature to have on a car that is trying to get you out a little bit more.
But I think if we were going to categorize these two vehicles overall, we'd probably say, we're not doing any off-roading on this test, and between the two of us, we find that the Passport is the more family-friendly, family-oriented of these two vehicles and the more sort of traditional SUV, whereas the Outback stands out in being different for its adventure-ready capability.
Yeah, I agree.
Great, well, I think we've made our decisions, so it's time to go back and discuss.
So both these cars are great, but I think my pick is going to be the Honda Passport. I love the space in it. I love that it's a little bit bigger. It's got some more size to it. I love the drive. I also really like the entertainment system a little better in here. What do you think?
I agree with you. I think for a lot of Canadian families, the Passport's going to be the more practical choice, but to me, it lacks character. So for me, my choice is the Subaru Outback Wilderness. I love its extra capability, I love its proportions, and it leads me to want to have a little bit more adventure in my life with that rooftop capability. I might go out and buy a rooftop tent if I had this car, which I wouldn't with a lot of others, and that's an incentive for me, so this one's my pick.
For Driving.ca, I'm Renita Noreen.
And I'm Stephanie Walcraft. To make sure you don't miss any more of our comparison videos, be sure to click the bell to subscribe and follow us on social media.